Friday. Welcome to another edition of the Scott Hamilton Show. Week 6 of the college football season. It's here. We've got a couple of wonderful games tonight. I mean, obviously Saturday is where we make hay, but we've got some really good tune-ups tonight with Kansas State at Oklahoma State. 2 games, conference games, Power 5 games. What a way to start off the week. Kansas State, 11.5-point favorite at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State 2-2, 7:30 kickoff ESPN. Kansas State 3-1. That only loss being that last-second defeat at Missouri when the thicker kicker hit a 61-yard field goal, SEC record 61-yard field goal. I think Kansas State is ranked after this game. I've already got the Wildcats number 24 on my top 25. Make of that what you will. But I think they crack the actual real one that matters top 25 after this week. I really like what Chris Klieman is doing in Manhattan, Kansas. That's a solid program. We saw it last year, winning the Big 12 title. They don't seem to have missed too much of a beat. Again, that only loss being the loss at Missouri. Oklahoma State, very curious though, and I want to make sure I get these numbers correct. Mike Gundy going away from the 3-quarterback system last week. That's probably good news. The bad news being that they lost to an Iowa State team that's really, really underwhelming, and that the quarterback who played, Alan Bowman, not Alex Bowman, the NASCAR driver, Alan Bowman, not a great day, 23 of 48, 278 yards. He had 2 touchdowns, offset by 2 interceptions. Is this the night that Mike Gundy figures things out? I'm worried about Mike Gundy. He hasn't been the same since we found out that we're going to have the end of Bedlam, at least for the foreseeable future. Oklahoma, along with Texas, going to the Southeastern Conference next year. He seems heartbroken. I mean, this is an Oklahoma State guy, played at Oklahoma State, assistant at Oklahoma State, been a head coach at Oklahoma State, seems like forever. He seems a little perplexed, disheveled. He doesn't seem like himself. And it makes me wonder if perhaps he's hit the end of the road at Oklahoma State, something that's almost unbelievable considering he basically works on a lifetime contract. Maybe he needs a change of scenery or to get out of coaching altogether, or perhaps he has the solution out there. Maybe he's working on something in the lab to figure out what's been baffling Oklahoma State, and he's going to unveil it perhaps tonight, perhaps in time for next year in the new Big 12 that's getting some new additions. It's going to be interesting to monitor that situation. The other game tonight, Nebraska 2-3 at Illinois, also 2-3. Illinois favored by 3 points. 8 o'clock kickoff FS1, which I didn't know FS1 is still a thing. I'm waiting for the air raid to take hold. I really am, at Wisconsin, and I'm waiting for Illinois to start opening things up. But I don't know if that's going to happen under Brett Bielema. Brett Bielema, of course, wants to be a ground and pound guy, and I wonder if that could be pivoting with the air raid going to Wisconsin. Are other teams going to follow suit? And teams that like to ground and pound, which Michigan is doing more and more of that. That's how they reinvented themselves after Jim Harbaugh got called out a couple of years ago. Went from being an up-tempo team to back to the way he won when he was at San Diego State or San Diego when he was at Stanford, so on and so forth. I'm wondering if they'll pivot. We're going to monitor that game tonight, Nebraska at Illinois. A couple bits of news before we get to Peter Burns of the SEC Network. He joined us to chop up Southeastern Conference football, some really intriguing games in the SEC tomorrow. That'll be Saturday, tomorrow. Of course, Alabama and A&M, which still a monster game, doesn't have the sex appeal of last year where we had that rivalry, Jimbo, Saban, Jimbo. Still a rivalry, by the way, But last year's game, coming off the A&M victory in College Station, first time a Saban assistant had defeated the Dark Lord of college football. And then we had all the back and forth leading up to the spring meetings where things got really personal. This game, though, doesn't have that extra bit of get up and go, but still a lot at stake. The winner of this game, first place of the SEC West, the loser, get out of here. You have no shot at the college football playoff. So that's going to be worth monitoring. Second game, Kentucky and Georgia. Georgia, 2-time defending national champs. They don't look like a number 1 team right now, but nobody really looks like a number 1 team right now. You can make an argument for 5-6 teams. I'll put Notre Dame in that argument, even with 1 loss. Georgia letting Auburn rolled up 5.1 yards a carry, more than 200 yards rushing. That's not an elite rushing defense. I'm a little concerned. And here comes Kentucky off of yet another win over the Florida Gators, 3 straight over Florida. Ground attack looks solid. I still think Devin Leary is getting acclimated to the Liam Cohen offense. Liam Cohen back after going and visiting with the NFL for a year. I'm about ready to call an upset. I'm about ready to call an upset. Not quite there yet, but maybe I will after I speak with Peter Burns of the SEC Network. Oh, by the way, don't forget LSU and Missouri. LSU needs a bounce back. Missouri 5-0. 5-0 Missouri. Drink off the hot seat. He gets this. He gets a lifetime extension, probably a lifetime contract in Columbia, Missouri. That'll be one of the things we discuss with Peter Burns when he joins us in a few minutes. A couple of bits of news, and I'm going to bring out the old yellow notepad here to make sure I'm not speaking out of school. Tez Walker, wide receiver at North Carolina, NCAA says he can play. They have granted him a transfer waiver finally after 4 games into the 2023 season. NCAA saying it has received new information that was not previously available. And they're also saying that UNC had that info but did not give it to them, and it would have relieved everyone of all this rigmarole. A lot of things involved. He had announced that he was transferring back in the winter. 4 days later, the NCAA put the kibosh on various types of transferring. He was transferring from Kent State, but he was doing it to be close to his ailing grandmother. He had also had some mental health issues that he was dealing with himself. It was just going to be the best move for his well-being. Mac Brown, when they keep stomping this young man down, not letting him go, not letting him play, he calls the NCAA out, says it's egregious, worst thing I've ever seen. And then the NCAA snaps back at him because their people are getting death threats. Long story short, Tez Walker is going to play. Tez Walker is going to play for the North Carolina Tar Heels. He is now eligible after this new information has become available. Syracuse at UNC, they're in Chapel Hill on Saturday, 3:30 kickoff on ESPN. Tar Heels favored by 9.5. One more bit of news before we get to our first break, and when we'll have Peter Burns, SEC Network on the other side. NIL collectives. It's a thing. It's here. They're not going anywhere. The Utah Crimson Collective, and this is a really, really fascinating story. Every scholarship player on the Utah Utes football team will have access to a 2024 Ram Bighorn 1500 pickup truck for a 6-month lease. That truck's $61,000. What are the qualifications? You got to be on scholarship. You got to have a clean driving record. And you got to be eligible. Then you can go get a truck. They're even paying the insurance for these things. Total investment, $6 million. The deal is voided if you transfer or if your eligibility expires, or they kick you off the team or whatnot. You get what I'm saying, but that's pretty cool. And that's not the first really interesting NIL deal coming out of Utah. Last year, don't forget the protein bar company based in Utah that's aligned with BYU was basically giving all the scholarship players they were paying. They were giving them all money equal to the cost of their tuition. And if they're on scholarship, they got to keep that money. Everybody got it. I want to say everybody got it, not just the players. I want to say even the walk-ons got it. The walk-ons got it too, and that was their tuition. And then the scholarship players were able to pocket that money. So that's kind of cool, a very innovative way to use this thing called NIL that is really running college athletics now, at least on the football side. But again, another topic for another time. We'll get a sports business expert perhaps next week to help us understand this. But right now we're going to take a break. Peter Burns, SEC Network, joining us on the other side. We're going to chop up what's happening in the Southeastern Conference Week 6. It's the Scott Hamilton Show. Stick around for more.
Hello, sports fans. FanStream Sports.
Hi, golfers. IndyCar Tim here. I want to talk to you a little bit about Golf Central Magazine. It's not just a golf magazine. It's the magazine for everything. Turf, travel, philanthropy, and lifestyle. Head over to golfcentralmag.com and check out the latest issue. Some of the regular features in Golf Central Magazine: the Golf Bachelorette of the Month, the Golf Bachelor of the Month, the Golf Cart Girl of the Month, Golf History, Grip It and Sip It. So head over to golfcentralmag.com. It's free. It's the magazine for everything: turf, travel, philanthropy, and lifestyle. Golf Central Magazine at golfcentralmag.com. We'll see you there.
All right, guys, time to talk a little bit about Turf Life. You've seen the hats on our heads. You've been or seen the video of the studio. You've seen that the decals are all over the place. Turf Life. Man, it's the brand that salutes the consumer and industry players everywhere whose lives involve turf. What does that mean? That means if you play or have a business or, maybe you're a sports educator, you're going to be on turf at some point. So you live the turf life. So go ahead and tell everybody you live the turf life by having your Turf Life window decal or, the hat or the keychain or the something. Along that lines, just go to turflifeclub.com and become a turf head. That's what it's called when you live the turf life. You're now a turf head. And you can go join the club today and snag that window decal or snag any other special Turf Life accessories and go over there to that website, which is turflifeclub.com, and get your stuff and show everybody that, man, I'm all about that turf life. And then you just kind of raise your coffee mug at them and go, yeah, turf life, baby. That's what it's about. And then that's the end of the commercial. Ding. That means it's done in microwave talk.
Hello, golf friends. It's IndyCar Tim from the Rough. I want to take just a minute here and tell you about our new friends over at Orca Golf. They make high-quality PGA Tour-grade golf bags, and they're the best in the business. They're the real deal. They're the best bags I've ever seen. They even designed a bag for the Golden Bear himself, Jack Nicklaus. Head over to orca-golf.com and pick up a great bag from their catalog, or let them customize one just for you. You can use your own custom colors, your own logo, you name it. You work with actual designers, and nothing goes out without the approval of founder Erica Bennett. She's just brilliant. Visit orca-golf.com, that's orca-golf.com, and use our promo code DSP10 for 10% off and free shipping. Do it today. Orca Golf, best choice in-game.
Guys, let me tell you about Bay Area Modern Medical Center. Are you experiencing low sex drive, fatigue, hot flashes, moodiness, and you just don't feel like you have the vitality you once had? You're not just getting old, it's likely low testosterone. Studies over the last 20 years show a shocking decline in younger males aged 16 to 39. Older men have seen a sharp decline as well. Do something about it. Go see my friend Christopher Lugo at Bay Area Modern Medicine. Testosterone replacement is not a frivolous treatment. It takes a professional, targeted approach that focuses on total body wellness, vitality, and emotional stability. Not a one-size-fits-all approach like many clinics use. They will monitor your blood work and adjust your treatment as needed for optimal results. Call 844-977-3477 or go to BAMMC.com.
Hey, listeners, make sure you check out the brand new FanStream Sports in-studio text line. You can reach us during any of our live shows or 24/7 at 214-937-0569. That's 214-937-0569. Text us 24/7 day or night, and we'll reply to you and make you part of the show.
Coming back at you. Now, more FanStream Sports.
Week 6 getting ready to kick off. Some marvelous games, a really interesting palette of games, particularly in the SEC. Games that had higher stakes than we would have expected, both positively and negatively. To break those down now, joining us, it's our friend Peter Burns of the SEC Network. Peter, welcome aboard. And I'm just going to jump right into it. This Bama and A&M game, it's not shocking if we went back and told the July ourselves that this would be first place in the SEC West. B, it is shocking that the loser of this game will have 2 losses and probably out of CFP contention.
Yeah, and I think, you look at it right now, Scott, and believe it or not, I actually like A&M in the way that they've been playing so far this year. And I know they had the bad half against Miami, but what Miami did really well, especially in the second half of that game, is not something that Bama does well, which is stretch the field, which is hit a bunch of wide receivers out with like intermediate and medium style routes. So, it's kind of, that saying that styles make fights. And I'm like, man, this is a fight, a bare knuckle brawl that I think actually fits A&M really well. And I would have never thought that I would say that. After the last 2 seasons with how Jimbo Fisher and these guys have struggled, the idea of bringing Bobby Petrino in, I know you and I talked about it a lot. It has worked brilliantly. 37 points per game, even though they got Max Johnson. I'm a firm believer with that crowd. I think it ends up being a great matchup for A&M. They stopped the run extremely well. Right. And I think that's the thing now with Tommy Rees is they're saying we're not going to make Jalen Milroe throw it more than 15 times a game. I think they're going to have to this time because I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball really well there in Kyle Field.
But you say even though they have Max Johnson, I think that's actually to their benefit. I mean, obviously Max Johnson, the most experienced backup quarterback in all the land, other than Brennan Armstrong now at NC State. But from what I've seen, and again, it's a very small sample size, Peter, from what I've seen, Max Johnson looks like a perfect fit for the Bobby Petrino offense, at least given, again, the small sample size we've seen.
Well, and remember, Max was the guy until he got injured, until he hurt his hand. That's when Connor Wegman decided to come in, and that's when they said, all right, well, Wegman is rolling well. Let's not make a change. So, Max Johnson's got 12 games underneath his belt where he's thrown 2 touchdown passes. So, he's had a whole hell of a lot of success there. And I think that was the important part, because right now in today's college football world, there's not a lot of guys that are willing to sit the bench, especially when you're a capable quarterback who could be taking snaps for, he could probably play right now for 50 different teams in college football, yet he was waiting his time. Now, part of that, if for those who don't know, his little brother is the tight end at Texas A&M. So when he decided to transfer, he knew his brother had already committed to Jimbo Fisher and A&M, so he wanted to play and be on the same team. And I thought it was really cool. The first week he comes in, he throws a touchdown to his brother. But that place is going to be rocking, and it's a monster game for Jimbo Fisher, right? Because now if you win this game, this is twice in a row in Kyle Field at College Station that you beat the greatest of all time, Nick Saban. There ain't a whole hell of a lot of guys that can say they beat Saban twice. It's probably Dabo, might be Kirby, and other than that, I honestly don't even know if there's ever else anybody. Maybe Hugh Freeze, because he had the back-to-back years when he was at Ole Miss, but that's a really, really short list out there.
Yeah, and it does so much for Jimbo in a number of different ways. To your point, 2 of the last 3 would be against Saban. When the pressure is really coming on Jimbo, he performs like this. He's shown he can put his ego in his pocket so far with the Bobby Petrino move. So I love Jimbo or hate Jimbo. You have to credit him so far. This is working out better than expected. Back to Max Johnson for a minute, though. I have to wonder this, Peter. How much would Nick Saban like to have Max Johnson right now? I have to think that if he were playing for Alabama, it's a totally different story.
Yeah, you would think, because that's one of the reasons why at the end of spring, or in the offseason, they brought in Tyler Buchner, because they're like, well, Jalen's not really living up to the point. Ty Simpson hasn't been doing it, and they wanted, somebody. Somebody had told me that they were looking at, 2 or 3 different quarterbacks, and just for whatever reason, they just decided no, they weren't going to go down to Tuscaloosa. So, but that's the hand that they're dealt with, and I think that's the one thing that's always made Saban stand out, Scott, is the fact that he can adapt, whether it's adapting to the name, image, and likeness, adapting to the transfer portal, or adapting to what quarterback he has. He's had that success. So again, monster game for Jimbo, monster game for Nick, believe it or not. And I ultimately think that this ends up being like a 27-24 Texas A&M victory, and changes all of college football landscape. You would have Bama with 2 losses before mid-October. They'd virtually be out of the college football playoff race. And I think it would put A&M, or will put A&M, in the driver's seat for Atlanta.
Well, just one more question on this topic, Peter. I want to pick your brain on this. And you guys, on all your various SEC platforms, you break down the offenses so wonderfully. But I learn a lot every time I watch it. And I'm wondering this. I see Alabama's offense. I see Tommy Rees. I see Tommy Rees basically with his handpicked quarterback, Tyler Buchner, and it not working. How much of the offense is actually Tommy Rees's, and how much of it is maybe Nick Saban insisting on certain concepts that Alabama has? Or maybe, Peter, is it a disconnect because of the verbiage? Has Nick Saban said, you've got to change the verbiage so our guys understand, and it's taken Tyler Buchner longer to adapt?
Well, I think what it is it was always told to me, and I think this goes back to when Bill O'Brien, Mike Locksley, Lane, all those stuff. When they would always want to come in, and I think it was Bill O'Brien, the famous story goes, Bill O'Brien brings his own playbook in, and he goes, all right, so this is what I'm going to be teaching the guys, and everybody kind of laughed at him. He's like, bro, you don't teach other guys the playbook. You learn the Alabama offensive playbook, right? And I think it speaks a little bit to, for Tommy Rees, I think actually it's not the Saban or Bama playbook, and it's not the Rees playbook. It's the what works for Jalen Milroe playbook. I think the first week of the season, or the first 2 weeks of the season, especially that Texas game, they were trying to make Jalen Milroe do Tommy Rees's / Alabama's offense. And at some point they realized, listen, all right, this is just not going to work. The same way it wasn't going to work for Harold Perkins playing inside linebacker for LSU. Like, it just wasn't fitting their skill set. So I think that they finally went after South Florida. They realized neither of the two of those other quarterbacks were going to be the option. They went to Tommy Rees and said, just do what Jalen Milroe can do. Let's not try to make him into somebody that he's not. Like, let's just play, really good defense. Let's run the ball, design runs, easy passes for him. And he's as big of a threat if you use him as an athlete. And I think now that they've done that, I think they're a lot more dangerous than they were in those first couple of weeks of the season when they were trying to make Jalen do stuff that it really didn't fit his skill set for now.
It's fascinating how it's going to play out. Peter, just one more topic, because I know you probably did your cool down. You got to get your protein shake from your workout. So
I got it right here.
Well, the other game that's got my attention, and I don't know that it has the attention it deserves nationally, but Georgia and Kentucky. And the first thing I thought on Saturday, Peter, and I think you'll agree with me on this, Kirby Smart in Georgia needs to thank the scheduling gods they're playing Kentucky in Athens instead of Lexington. And there are some people saying, oh, well, Kentucky gave Florida its best shot and that's their peak. And I totally disagree. I think Devin Leary is still wrapping his mind around the Liam Cohen offense. And I'm not calling it upset, Peter, but I'm about to call an upset. What are you seeing in this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Kentucky and Georgia are basically the same team right now. And I say that. Now, I obviously you're playing in Athens and they've got more 4 or 5-star guys. But, each and every week we've been waiting for them not to have a governor switch on this offense. And we see it in the second half. But, I mean, Kentucky's not afraid of anybody. That's a credit to what Mark Stoops has had in this kind of blue-collar mentality. And I say blue chip, it's more of a chip on the shoulder mentality for him. Like they get up for that. Like there was no doubt in my mind that Kentucky was going to beat Florida because they have made that almost like not their Super Bowl, but just like, hey, this is the former brand. This is the old guard. We're the new guard. Ray Davis is a beast. And I think there's some serious issues. I mean, it's weird to see Georgia, who has traditionally a really good run defense, just get absolutely slashed by Auburn. And you knew Auburn was going to be really one-dimensional. Georgia knew what was coming, and they still didn't, had a trouble kind of putting them away. And Kentucky's got some playmakers. Like, this is the type of game that I can see where Kentucky gets the ball first, they go on a nice solid drive, score a touchdown or a field goal, get an interception, and all of a sudden everybody's like, what? And then Carson Beck, who, to his credit, was awesome at Jordan-Hare. Like, that's a home field advantage that the Auburn Tigers have. And Carson Beck really, really grew up in my mind in that game. But I think it's better than a coin flip that an upset's pulled off right now. I mean, the fact that it's 2 touchdowns just seems crazy to me. I think that's everybody looking at the brand and thinking, oh, Kentucky, because I thought you touched on an interesting part. I still don't think Devin Leary's had his A game yet.
Correct.
I think Kentucky as a team, rushing attack and defensively, have had some kind of B+, A- games. But Leary and I think a very talented wide receiver crew. I would say that wide receiver room at Kentucky is actually more talented than the wide receiver room at Georgia, just as a whole. Now, they don't have a player as good as Brock Bowers, but outside of that, they've got some dudes. And Leary's had more experience than Carson Beck. So, and coaches told me, and I was talking to this about some of the Texas guys when I was out in Austin last week. They say there's a lot more pressure sometimes for some of these quarterbacks when they're starting at home than they are on the road. And I was like, that's crazy. It's so loud. They're like, bro, you don't understand, like, the amount of ticket requests that you have. And then, like, this angst that the crowd, the home crowd starts, you can almost hear them in the stands if things aren't going well. Kentucky has that way of making things not go well. And I think they're actually a team that thrives on playing on the road. As good as that was, the home field advantage was in Lexington, I think they actually like being on the road for this game in a weird way. Like, hey, if we're going to do it, let's do it the old-fashioned hard-ass way, which is winning on the road against the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, and again, that's the Mark Stoops demeanor, Mark Stoops personality. Yeah. We're just that blue collar. I will say this back, and then we'll put a pin in this one. You can't pull an offensive coordinator out, have another guy come in, restructure the offense for a year, then bring back the old offensive coordinator 2 years later and expect it to be what it was. I still think this is taking time with what Cohen did, having to get it back to where it was. And to Devin Leary, when you're a transfer coming in with as much hype and hoopla as you've had of that guy, I thought he was the best quarterback in the ACC the last couple of years. He's a phenomenal talent. I think,
and they don't have a Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, remember that year that he came in, Wan'Dale was just awesome. He was he was like this Devin Hester type guy. You got the ball, and like zip, he would go. And so they don't have that guy yet, but I think they're built a little bit different. And I think, again, offensive line, I'd put their offensive line right now with Georgia, and I think some of the playmakers are on defensively with Maxwell Harrison and those guys. I think they've got J.J. Weaver, like they got dudes. So, you know, if we're having this conversation next week and we're like, hey, A&M and Kentucky are in the driver's seat for Atlanta, it honestly would not shock me. It might shock everybody else, but it would not shock me at all.
It would shock the July version of me. I'll leave it at that. One more thing, Peter, then I'll let you go. Again, you've got to get that protein in you. Probably have to do some stretching. LSU, Missouri. I'm of the belief that if Missouri wins this game, we get news within the next 10 days that Drinkwitz is getting a 5-year extension after being on the hot seat.
Yeah, well, he got one. Remember, he already got one, so it would not surprise me if they gave him another extension. And listen, I said that Wan'Dale Robinson was great for Kentucky. There's no better, more electric player in the SEC than resides in Columbia, Missouri, is Luther Burden. Luther Burden was this 5-star kid out of St. Louis, and people are like, why the hell is he going to, why is he going to Missouri? It made sense in theory, but you're like, man, he's probably going to transfer as soon as he gets a chance to get out. That is not the case, and he's the reason why they're playing so well. Brady Cook, who again was in a quarterback battle. I mean, now he's thrown like 332 passes without an interception. He's taking care of the ball. It's an 11 a.m. game, which the crowd's going to be crazy because everybody wants to beat LSU. LSU's up against the ropes. LSU, one of their cornerbacks today was dismissed for the team right now indefinitely. So they're in a world of hurt right now. And this is one of those ones where it becomes a real slippery slope for LSU because they're going to waste arguably the second best offense they've had in school history because they can't stop a nosebleed on defense.
Let me get your opinion on this real quick. We're talking about Missouri, and I'm wondering, and you'll know better than I do, how much of this we're seeing from Missouri is the product of that generational class of in-state talent that they signed a couple of years ago. You mentioned one player who out of St. Louis, I think he was part of that group. And basically that put Drinkwitz on the clock, that if he couldn't make hay with those guys, then they were going to cut bait. And now we're seeing it really bloom.
Yeah, I mean, and I was never of the belief, Scott, that they were going to cut that bait with Drink. I think that they looked at what's going on at Kentucky, and like Mitch Barnhart gave Mark Stoops a long leash. And look what's happened, right? A couple of 10-win seasons, and he's got them undefeated right now with a chance over in Athens, like we talked about. But I think for Drink, it is just just literally, it's a show me state. It's like, show me that you can make hay with these guys, and he's doing it. I was shocked that he's been quiet this week because I told him the advice that Drink should have is give me the full Deion Sanders, like hype it up. Because if you lose, everyone's going to be like, well, listen, it's Missouri. You lost to LSU. LSU was good. We get it. But then if you call your own shot at home, I would love it. Like, and he's kind of that guy that has a little bit of wiggle to him that he would, he's not afraid to stir it up. So, trust me, as a diehard LSU fan, I'm nervous as hell this weekend because I could just see it, man. If Missouri gets off to a 10-0 start, the crowd's going, LSU's up against the ropes, and you got a lot of guys that, transferred in that just was like, man, I'm in Columbia, Missouri, and our team's not good. How much of those guys are willing to fight for purple and gold? We'll see come Saturday.
I dream of a world, Peter, where we wake up and Lane Kiffin is trolling Drink. And back and forth. We haven't had that. We had Dan Mullen in Drink, which was kind of. But if we can get to that level, Peter, I know you're very busy. It's Peter Burns at SEC Network. Follow him on Twitter at Peter Burns ESPN. Peter, real quick, your Ryder Cup. Sum it up in 30 seconds.
Just death, taxes, and the Europeans winning every single time over there. Like, it's just weird that they're from like 9 different countries who play more unified than the individual players of the USA. But hey, man, all I know is that Bethpage Black here in a couple of years is going to be nuts. So I'm already trying to finagle a ticket to that one here in 2 years to get some revenge.
I got you. I've been to U.S. Opens at Bethpage when they were just killing Sergio, dude. And I was telling people over the weekend, I said, they are making a mistake going to Bethpage. That's going to be a war zone.
Yeah, everybody needs to have their own security detail out there. So,
all right, he's Peter Burns. Peter, be safe, brother.
Later, buddy.
Welcome back. Always enjoy our time with Peter Burns. He's a regular on all variations of the Scott Hamilton Show, so I'm always enjoying our time with Peter. And good to know Peter's getting his workout in, and he didn't want to miss his regular segment with us, so he hangs out in the parking lot for a while, chats with us, and then he goes home, gets prettied up, and does what Peter Burns does. It's host 8,000 shows across various ESPN platforms, but most notably the SEC network. It's a wild year in the Southeastern Conference, man, and I cannot help but wonder. Yeah, Georgia's loaded. Player for player, all across the roster, Georgia usually week in and week out is going to have a better roster by leaps and bounds. But what would that team be right now without Brock Bowers? He was just so marvelous against Auburn. And I meant what I said to Peter. And I'll stand by that. I think Brock Bowers is not only the best football player in America, I think he's a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate. And it's become almost an annual rite of passage to give that award to a quarterback. Every now and then you'll have a Devontae Smith, somebody that'll shake it up like a snow globe and give us something that we don't normally expect. I think that could happen this year, but it would be from a tight end. But do you really even call Brock Bowers a tight end? It's such a positionless game now. I mean, you're basically two positions, at least, on offense and defense too. You're either a lineman or you're a specialist, with the quarterback being the outlier on offense. On defense, you're either a down lineman or you're an athlete. Now you have edge rushers, this, that, and the other, but the lines are continuing to blur more and more between linebackers and safeties, between corners and linebackers, even between linemen and ends. It's really fascinating how the game has evolved. And Brock Bowers fits into that criteria. Is he a tight end? No, I don't think so. Is he a wide receiver? No, I don't think so. Is he an H-back? No, I don't think so. I think he's a football player. He's just a force of nature, 6'4", who can go out there and create matchup nightmares for every team they face. There's no team in America that has a solution for Brock Bowers. Nobody can crack that riddle because he will find space. You can slow him down for a while, but eventually he's going to get you. You can only throw, and if you throw so many different combinations at him, you play bracket defense, this, that, or other, he's still going to find a soft spot, but that's going to make something else weak. And the savvy offensive coordinator, the savvy quarterback, they're going to be able to exploit that. It's just a matter of time, and I truly believe this, before Georgia loses a game. Now, does that mean Georgia's not going to win the national championship? No. I am hesitant to say any team in America is a certain national champion. I will not call that right now because I haven't seen it yet. Southern Cal, that's a whole different breed of cat. They're not going to the playoff. I'm certain of that. Texas, we'll find out a lot about Texas against Oklahoma. That's for certain. Ohio State. Ohio State's going to get an interesting test, at least on defense, against Maryland. Maryland's offense, I know they haven't played a lot of people, but that offense has been trending upward for the last couple of years. Little Tua at quarterback. I need to see more before I say this is my favorite to win a national championship, because right now I'm really hesitant to put that label on anybody. And I'll stand by this again before we wrap it up. What I've seen out of Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame is the most complete football team in the country. Now, that could turn around and bite me when they play undefeated Louisville, and I get that. But from what I've seen, the narrow loss to Ohio State at home, the narrow victory at Duke, and don't laugh, Duke is pretty legitimate. Duke is pretty good, and that was a hostile environment. Think about Cameron Indoor Stadium expanded and into Wallace Wade Stadium in Durham. I'm really impressed. Sam Hartman is the perfect guy for that team at the perfect time. I mean, what a gift to get a six-year senior who's not only a six-year senior, but a guy who's had just tremendous success to be the quarterback at Notre Dame. And I'm not a Notre Dame fan. I'm not a Notre Dame apologist. No, I'm just calling it as I see it. I think they're the most complete team in the country, offensively, defensively, special teams. Now, I could be wrong. All that can change. They could lose at Louisville, second loss, get them out of the playoff conversation, and then I have egg on my face the next time we join ourselves or we come together. But I really believe it. But that's why they play the games. We'll find out. Going to have a blog post on over the weekend. We got our bandwagoning blog post is up on FanStream Sports. You can go to the main page under blogs, or you can go to the Scott Hamilton Show page and you'll see it. It's I think you'll find it interesting. I hit on USC, I hit on the Mountain West, and I got a few other odds and ends in there that'll maybe inform you, maybe entertain you, maybe both. I hope it does. Don't forget, if you don't have it already, download the FanStream Sports mobile app, good for both Android and iPhone. Don't forget. Also, don't forget, go to the FanStream Sports Facebook page. Give it a like, leave a comment, follow it, whatever. And, of course, you can also follow me on Twitter, X, at ScottH4456, ScottH4456. The DMs are open. Let me know what's on your mind. Let me know what you're going to be watching this weekend. And let me know what you're expecting and what else you want to see in this show. Because I want to give the people what they want. Man of the people. Otherwise, I got to roll. I got a hot weekend of college football ahead of me. Until next time, be safe.